morning. Welcome to Viewpoint, your program with personalities, politicians, and perspectives. We've got personalities and perspectives with us this morning in spades, and we're happy to have our guest with us, whom Judy will introduce very shortly. Well, I start Viewpoint with a kudo or two, and Mrs. Busby suggested a kudo this morning, and I tried to get her handle that. Matter of fact, I'm just going to hand it off on air to you right now.
No. That's your job, Buster. Don't try to pass it off on me.
Well, driving up here, as I was trying to get her past the Glendale Tap, had a hard time keeping on the road.
Restraining me.
She had a thirst this morning, but anyway, she suggested, and this is a serious matter, all the levity that we try to have up here once in a while to keep things light. This COVID thing has been a serious thing worldwide for us, and each one of us affected in our own ways. And Judy came up with the idea that maybe a kudo would be appropriate for the teachers and the kids who are laboring, and I think I use that term advisedly, to put on a modicum of education through the virtual method, that is, studying at home over their computer. Got to be a challenge, number one, for the teachers. God love them. Their business is day to day. Without all this problem, they have problems every day. And the youngsters, some youngsters will cope with that, and others struggle a lot, not a little. So kudos to those folks who are trying to find a basic education in a different way. Mrs. Busby, you done good on that.
Okay.
You just done good. I learned my English that way over virtual education.
I guess we'll not mention the school he went to, shall we?
Hard knocks.
Yeah, there you go.
So let's get right down to serious business, because we have two nice guests this morning, people I respect very much, and we're going to talk about some military business.
Well, let's first let their names out of the bag here. Joe Schaler and Marsha Fernandes are very active in the veterans' lives. And of course, we are approaching Saturday, October 3rd, probably more quickly than we like to approach.
I'd like to make a side comment on Mr. Joe Schaler.
Yes, you can.
Well, he's the reason that we have Danny Benedict down there at the Veterans Assistance Commission. Joe's a veteran of Vietnam, Purple Heart, and I suspect he's still got a little Agent Orange running around in him, which is a bad thing. But I have a lot of respect for Joe Schaler. A veteran, came back to Lincoln and quietly went about trying to do things good, and has continued to do so. He's here this morning with Marsha, who born the idea that we're going to talk about. So, salute, Joe.
Thank you.
If you'll bear with me, I'd just like to read what you've written on your poster here, because it says it all. I don't know if one of you thought this up. Oh, that man there? Schaler in the red shirt? He's the boy. Okay, it says, a few months ago, we all became affected by the pandemic, COVID-19. Amen to that. We had no clue of the toll it would take in lives and in financial impact it would place on businesses, their employees, our economy, and our veterans organizations. In light of what we all have been through this year, many of the county veterans organizations are combining into one major fundraiser in order to replenish their coffers. Doing so will ensure they can continue to assist our veterans and their families. Now, you've both been active in Veterans Affairs for a long time. In fact, I got a kick out of your telling me before we came in here, Marsha, about your family. I mean, if you're not a veteran in your family, what do they do? Just kind of blackball you?
Yeah, make them walk the dogs.
Goodness sakes. Kind of reiterate that listing of the service that your family has been involved in.
Sure, I'm very proud to say my dad was a World War II veteran and was at Iwo Jima and Guam.
My brother was a Marine in Vietnam, same time Joe was there in '68. And my youngest daughter, Lauren, is married to a Marine as well, who is now an Illinois State Police officer. So,
My brother was in Vietnam, too. That was a hard time for our country, wasn't
yes,
it?
it was.
It was very difficult. Goodness,
If that doesn't instill in you a desire to be on your knees every night to pray for the safety and return and appreciate the job that not just those veterans, but all veterans have done, then you need to rethink your life, I think. So,
You know, it's interesting. Some fellows fought the Second War and still found themselves in Vietnam, for goodness sakes. That's a rarity, but it's still a case. Yeah. So we appreciate both of you on your efforts for the veterans. Some of our veterans organizations are really having a tough time because of this COVID-19 thing, and may in fact find it necessary to close facilities. That's something we don't want to see happen.
No.
And I'd like to just comment about the number of veterans organizations we have. I was surprised at this myself, Joe, and I thought I'd been around the block. Of course, the American Legion, which started in World War I, in France, by the way. That's where the first Legion chapter was formed. And, of course, the 40 and 8. That's the 40 chevaux and 8 men.
Right.
That has to do with the way they pack their freight cars over in Europe.
Right.
So that's an unusual organization. Yeah, that's because Judy put 40 men and eight mules on the box cars.
Is that right? I never knew that.
And the Marine Corps League, very important here to us. By the way, just as a quick aside, the Marine Corps League, we have the Bob Grau chapter here in Lincoln, Logan. Marine Corps League has been very important to us out there at the Christian Village. A lot of little things they've done for us with their flags and so forth. And the thing that's near and dear to Joe's heart, the Military Order of the Purple Heart. I always thought those boys, extra salute. And Veterans of Foreign Wars, I always thought you had to be invited to that membership. And just recently I joined the Veterans of Foreign Wars because that's the one thing I wanted to do before I, left this earth. And then we have the auxiliary, the veterans. The women in these organizations are very important. Somebody said something, years back. This is another aside away from the veterans. And so the various lodges were all men, of course, and the Elks Lodge being among them, and they finally admitted some women. That's the way it goes. And some people were crying around about that, and I said, listen, when I look around here and I see the way things get done, you better be tickled to death they're members because they're movers and shakers and get things done. So the purpose of this, we're going to have a big banquet here on October the 3rd, which is a Saturday, at the banquet center out on Madigan Drive. And so take it from there, Joe or Marsha. We'll go from how we're going to handle that and so forth.
Okay, Marsha. She has her list with her.
Go ahead, Mrs. Fernandes. You're an important part of this.
That's right.
By the way, Marsha been a volunteer a long time at the complex where I live out at the Christian Village. And we always appreciated her help out there. Now she's been working with Lincoln College, and I don't know what COVID-19 has done to you there. But go ahead, please, with this fundraiser business.
well, I volunteered to help Joe with the fundraiser and try to be his hands and feet. So I'm just kind of out soliciting businesses, talking to folks, trying to get auction items for the silent auction, the large auction, and obviously monetary donations work extremely well. And we've got a crew of people in a committee that have come together about every 2 weeks right now to plan and meet up with each other to find out where everyone is. And so on October 3rd, the doors will open at 5 o'clock at the Banquet Center. Flossie and Delzina's are going to cater a marvelous meal. And at 8 o'clock, we have the Country Western Band Brushville playing at 8 o'clock until 11 at night. And we're going to have 50-50 drawing, and then all the auctions will take place periodically throughout the evening. So it should be very much fun and a great release for everybody to get their minds off everything else that's going on.
Well, I think that's an important point you just made there. We've all kind of got to stir crazy, staying home,
Yes.
wondering around what the heck to do next.
Right.
And probably a few fights need refereed and so forth as a result of this. But so it's important to have an outlet. And the net result of being able to have an outlet is that the veterans organizations are going to be the beneficiaries of your efforts. And I think that's really important. Some veterans, some of us a little more gregarious and outgoing than others, some veterans stay at home and they're alone. And this gives them a place to go often. I see folks at the American Legion that I never see anywhere else. It's a good thing. People aren't meant to be totally alone. They need to get out and visit with people. COVID-19 has made that a little more difficult, but these organizations all need some help. So this is how you're responding to that. You call it believing heroes. Well, that's a nice shield you have there. How are you going about getting items for auctions? Is that you have committee, you have people going around asking various places for that?
That's correct. We have people on the committee that are soliciting businesses. We've tried to square off in certain territories so we don't, ask the same businesses over and over. We know it's a difficult time for all the businesses because of being shut down, and so we're being really attentive to that. As a matter of fact, I was at a business the other day, and he told me, he says, I can't even make payroll. And I told him, I said, I perfectly understand. It's okay. This is going to be a better year, and I'll be back to see you next year when we do this again.
Yeah.
So, I get it. And I need to mention that the banquet hall has, I think, room for 40 tables, Joe. Mm-hmm. And we are, because of social distancing, 22 tables, 10 to a table for social distancing.
That holds your crowd down automatically.
Yeah,
that cuts into your attendance.
Yes, by 50%, unfortunately, yeah. But we have to do it. We have to abide by the rules. A lot of people aren't happy because we can't have everyone there, but next year we will. And so this year we're social distancing and being very aware of following the guidelines imparted by the health department.
Well, it goes without saying, Marsha and Joe, that there are a number of people who will not be able to attend for one reason or another. But I'd like to suggest, propound the idea that maybe they could make a check appear in their place. So if somebody had the idea to send off a nice check to help this veterans dinner, where would they send that, please?
They'd send it off to the VAC office.
Veterans
122 North McLean there in Lincoln. And we've started having some checks come in, which we're very grateful for. We've got this on our VAC Facebook page. We put it on personal Facebook pages. There's going to be a short story coming out next week in the papers that'll have the address in there again. So it's and again, as Marsha said, we try to approach this from the standpoint that over the past several years, talking to different businesses, they've come in and had where you've been the third person to walk in there and ask for a donation. And it's like we've been trying to pull this together into one major drive from everyone to do it once, so we're not hounding all the businesses.
Yeah.
After a pandemic, that kind of worked out. It forced it into that situation. But and then the other part of it is to try to help obviously help all the posts that we can. The irony of it is, if you had a post like the American Legion here in Lincoln, for the VFW. It's kind of a double-edged sword in that you had a place that you could have activities, but over the last 4 months when you couldn't open, it was a place that the checks had to keep being written to pay for things without any money coming in.
Yeah.
And so it's an attempt to help all of them because they can't do their normal fundraising this year. So we're just really trying to make up for that as much as we can with this. And every dollar will go to one of them. It's all being divided up equally. So we're very fortunate that we've had a lot of things donated, and we're getting a lot of merchandise into raffle. And she didn't mention her tip board, but she's going to have a tip board besides the 50-50. And so it's really an opportunity to give back to these posts, whether you're a veteran or not. They are stable in every county and every state because they do a lot of things that people don't realize every day. So,
Speaking of tip boards, I just got a tip a minute ago. It has to do with checks. If we don't honor our sponsors, we'll have no tips or checks. So go right ahead, Mr. Ash. And having paid obeisance to our sponsors, whom we appreciate very much, we're right back live in the studios here. Our guests this morning, Marsha Fernandes and Joe Schaler. And our purpose of their being this today is talking about the Veterans Fundraiser, which will be very soon now, October the 3rd, at the Lincoln Banquet Center out there on Madigan Drive, which is on the west side of town, if you don't remember that. Veterans organizations, like many, are having difficulty today because of this COVID-19. And each and every veterans organization in this community contributes to our community in one way or another, in a rather substantial way. I've mentioned the Marine Corps League and how important they have been out there at the Christian Village. And other pitch right in, too. So this is a worthy cause. And it's a cause that needs our help. And we're limited out there in attendance because of this COVID thing. But as I suggest, it ought to motivate some people to send a check, whatever manner that they would see fit, to the Veterans Assistance Commission. They're on McLean Street, which is right there in the corner next to the library. And Denny Benedict does a good job for the veterans there, fronting for us, running down problems and so forth. And he's there because of our friend Joe Schaler. Many months ago, Joe made an effort to see to it that we got that office staffed and filled, and it's working fine. The fact that, by the way, Marsha, you mentioned tips a while ago. I'll just make a personal comment about tips. These folks who serve food, the wait staff, they've been really affected by the fact that there's not that much business. So when you're out there and you have somebody waiting, remember that and tip them a little extra. Don't worry about that 15-20%. Add a little extra on. They appreciate it and they need it. And I think of the way some incomes have been affected very seriously.
Oh dear.
So let's get back to the fundraiser. You've been able to. And talking about hardships, we have a lot of businesses that have experienced some real hardships here in our community.
Yes.
Very difficult, particularly those in the food service industries. No, not just them alone. So when you go around trying to get donations for such matters as worthy as this, you hate to go in that door and ask a businessman for another contribution. And as one said to Marsha, I'm not sure about making my payroll next week.
Right.
That's how serious this is. So this requires a community effort, not just, we can't rely on our business people. The rest of us that walk around and chew gum, act like we know where we are, ought to remember our Veterans Commission and this fundraiser, which will take place. And if you can't think of any place else, just stop by the American Legion bar out there and leave them an envelope. They'll say to it gets to the right place after they take 10%.
They don't.
No,
It's a disclaimer. They don't take that.
So, Joe, tell us
Poor Joe.
Once in a while, I'll put my foot right into my mouth.
Okay.
Not often, but often enough. Tell us about what's going on in the veterans world here in Logan County, Joe. Now, quickly, Mrs. Fernandes, and has for some time, with a lot of help up at Eminence Church, provided a nice breakfast for the veterans. She may not be able to pull that off this year, but she's worried about it because of the COVID thing. But countywide, what's going on with the veterans, Mr. Schaler?
Well, I would say if we can once we get past this, the COVID-19 and a lot of the restrictions on it, that they will, they are all attempting at this point in time, as you mentioned, like the Marine Corps League and the work they've done at Christian Village, and the fact that they've done a lot of work helping veterans with mobility equipment, with ramps. All those things are still going on behind the scenes, and that's why I say that people sometimes forget that they're making a contribution, even though they don't run around with a big sign on their trucks or whatever saying they're doing something. That's still going on, and helping out with families that are in distress. That's still going on. We're still doing a lot of our ceremonies and trying to perform as close to normal as you possibly can with outgoing resources. It's the incoming resources that have been greatly affected with COVID because of the lack of donations. So this is I have found over the last few years, and I've said it here, I've tried to say it frequently, that this is a very veteran-friendly county in so many things that they have donated to help our veterans. And one of the things that, when we were off the air, that Marsha alluded to, that we collected $100 up front from each one of these organizations to get into it, because we thought we were going to need money for advertising, tickets, things like that. Well, the advertising to sell the tickets, we didn't use that money because the tables sold out in 8 days without any advertising.
Which is marvelous.
Good for you.
Tables out.
Good for you.
So 220 people were ready to go, and yes, we could have put 400 people in there, I'm sure, under normal circumstances. But everything we're doing right now also is kind of the template for next year, for next October, when we hope we are able to have all 40 tables filled, and we'll have a year to work on this instead of about 75 days to put this together. So it takes an awful lot of people who have a good heart in the right place to want to do it. And we run into them all the time. Like I said, we've had checks already started coming in. We've had companies make some sizable donations to us. It is a very I guess heartwarming experience to be a part of it, because I just see this resilience come out over and over and over again over the years. Just when you don't think something's going to work out, it does work out, and it works out very well. So this lady's done a fantastic job pulling people together and making things go forward. And we had a great venue. that was donated to us, a dinner, the auction items, a band that we spent several years trying to get booked that has come on board to do this. So it's one of those things when it comes together like that, you know you must be doing something right.
Yeah.
It's going in the right direction with very little interference. And her job has just been to make sure it's the best that it can be under the circumstances we're operating under. And next year just get bigger and better.
You know, I'm sitting here thinking of all these efforts, and Judy, the idea popped into me just a minute ago. The St. John's United Church of Christ for years have had a Veterans Affair every fall.
Right.
Nice affair. A lot of kids in that church work out. Some of the kids show up in their grandpa's uniforms, and so it's a neat thing. Small town thing, you know.
Right.
I call it the Mayberry effect, you know, because it's nice to live in a small town because people kind of have a common interest. But anyway, this year, because of the COVID thing, St. John's is not going to be able to have that thing. But I want to tip a bouquet full of flowers in the direction of St. John's for their efforts. That we won't forget them between now and 2021. We'll be back if God willing.
Yeah.
Well, some of us will be. I'm not sure about all of us, especially one sitting here. The donations. As I said, it's hard to go in and ask merchants for things today. Can you give us an idea of the type of things that you have in your auction, Marsha?
We have, I think, a framed picture. We have a photograph by Randy Washam. I haven't seen that one yet. We have several baskets, and other than that, we have a lot of coupons for meals. So
okay, that's good. That's always a decent auction item.
Right.
Easy to get a hold of.
Yes. We're going to probably consolidate some of the items in our own gift baskets that we're going to create and set aside, maybe with some meal tickets and a bottle of wine, etc., for someone to bid
Well, she
on.
got my attention already. She mentioned a bottle of wine.
Yes.
Is that right up?
Yeah, we have a 20-foot flagpole
Right.
that is
nice.
not inexpensive.
No, it is not.
And we have two of the small flag cases. We have one larger one for a funeral flag that were handmade. We have a large wooden American flag that's been handmade.
Quilts.
Oh, there's quilts. We have an Afghan that Kathy Leisman made again for us, that she makes one every year. And so we have a lot of handmade items that are being put together with this, besides some of the things that are just like the flagpole. So it's an eclectic group that's coming together, but that seems to, every one of these, whether when we do a quarter auction or whatever it may be, you kind of get a grouping there of things that have been purchased and donated, like your weed whacker that Big R donated, things like that. And we're going to recognize everyone who supported us at this event, because they deserve to be recognized. And there's the list is growing every week, thankfully, and I think at this point that every organization is going to come out of this with not enough to maybe cover all the losses they've had, but certainly give them a boost that, okay, we're moving in the right direction here. And again, raise the consciousness of our county, of the veterans are out there, and if they want to continue to have things like the honor guard, the mobility, all these other things that they do, we kind of need to make sure we're putting money in the coffers to keep them going. And veterans aren't much for asking for help. So this is not something charity as much as it is just trying to help them recover a little bit so they can continue to give.
Continue. That's the important part.
Yeah, continue,
Not starting out, but continue. 648-5510. We're sitting here, Mrs. Busby, once again. Why don't you nudge me once in a while and remind me we're supposed to do this early in the hour. 648-5510. Somebody may have a comment or question. Be nice to Joe and Marsha. They're solid people.
Something like this program makes you feel good all over, because the news is so full of the people who they use the term protesters. Bill used that word in the car on the way up here, and I said, don't even use that word. That's not protesting. That's just rioters. And we hear the bad things time and again. Now here you are telling us about the good that you've done in the past, the good you want to do today and tomorrow, and the Mother Nature has thrown up this block in front of you and said, oh yeah, well, I know it's a big job, but here, climb that wall and then maybe you can start,
Yeah.
And let's focus on this kind of thing. This is the inherent good in people. And there's a lot more of that than there are the Hanyaks.
That's true. And when we've been out, in my own personal experience, talking to the businesses, they're so willing to help. The minute you mention veterans, they are just on board. And it's really rewarding, because it makes my job a lot easier, obviously, but it's just nice to see that people, without hesitation, when you mention the veteran organizations here in Logan County, like Joe said, they're ready to come on board, and it's very rewarding to see that.
Joe mentioned the honor guard. Now, a lot of people, we go to services for our loved ones or friends, and we see the honor guard. We say that's nice, but we don't stop to think what it takes to put the honor guard out there. And so let's talk about that just a minute, Joe. They're going to do that for the old fella. I hope they don't run out of blanks by the time.
There's only one live round. I never know who has it.
You got a shirky toot going there.
So, tell us about that. How it's do you know the history of it, Joe? I do not know the history of how the honor guard started, but it's been a time-honored tradition down through the years.
Oh, yeah, for centuries, and from our standpoint, from several legions here in the county with Lincoln and Emden and Mount Pulaski, they were fortunate enough to try to work together to make sure that we can provide enough personnel to any of those for an honor guard. And when people come up afterwards and they want to thank you and say thank you for being here. We just did one last Friday, several of them one Thursday and Friday of last week. One of them was in the parking lot of a funeral home because of the circumstances there. Yeah. And people came up beforehand and thanked us, and afterwards, and if they come up to me, I always just tell them that this is why we call it an honor guard, because it's an honor for us to do it. Mm-hmm. And they're always taken aback by that, and we mean that. These are volunteers out there who are still able to get up, get out, and keep moving and do this. And many of them have been doing it for decades. And it is an honor for them to do it, and a tribute. We don't take it lightly. We know why we're there, and typically that is the last thing a family ever sees or hears is the honor guard at the end. And you'll always, when it's over with, it's very quiet afterwards.
Yeah, it is.
They're trying to take in that moment after taps, and that's kind of when a lot of them realized the finality of everything at that point. Now this is over.
That's a decent way to quit, you know. Speaking of taps, I went to Eminence Christian Cemetery one time. Oh, it was several years ago now. And it came time for taps, and this guy I knew from ever put the bugle up there, and boy, blew me away. I didn't know he could do that. Well, of course, now they have these devices in the horn.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
And so I said, I didn't know you could play taps. And he says, I can't play taps here. And he showed me. and it's just perfect. You don't know, you can't tell the difference.
Right.
And it's a modern way to do it.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about missing a note. It's going to be right every time. Yeah.
The thing I want to mention is our local honor guard. I don't care what the weather is, they'll show. And sometimes under very difficult circumstances, really snarky weather, they're there. Yeah. And I want to tell you, that's a great thing for the family of the veteran who's being put away.
Yes, it is.
To know that these guys will show up for that. So the family is honored when they do that. Very definitely. 648-5510. Before we close this morning, somebody might have a question, excuse me, please, and/or a comment about this Veterans Fundraiser, which is this Saturday, not this Saturday, first Saturday in October, Saturday, October the 3rd, at the Lincoln Banquet Center. And as Marsha said, the table sold out in a hurry, which was great. Go right ahead, Marsha.
Bill, Judy, wanted just to mention that the Lincoln Banquet Center generously donated the hall for the veterans that evening. And also September 14th, Monday through Thursday the 17th, from 11 in the morning till 6 at night, Culler's French Fries will be on the lot at the Lincoln Banquet Center selling their famous French fries. And Haji has agreed to donate the rent for his being parked on the lot to this cause.
How
so
nice. Yeah,
he's just
good.
been
Thank you,
extremely generous, and we just want to thank him and his new backroom bar that he has for being so wonderful to all of us.
Yeah. Colors go back to Logan County Fair. I don't know how many years. They may have
Right.
been selling French fries in 39 with the 37, whatever it was, when the fair restarted.
Right.
They had the great horse races in the afternoons.
Oh, yeah.
And then in those days, we had what we called, quote, the society horse show. And, and you dressed up, men dressed up in suit and ties, sit in the boxes or in the stands, and the ladies dressed up in all their nines. And I would sell programs. And I made more money selling pencils than I did programs.
You know, from the time I moved here, and that's a long time ago, as I think back, when the fair, people would start talking about the fair, they always tied in colors with the fair. Yeah. I mean, that was a big part of what you looked forward to, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And
yes.
Jim McKinstry's lemonade shake-ups. So there are a lot of tradition, a lot of history there. The time to start for this program on October the 3rd will be at 5:30 or what?
Doors open at 5.
Doors open at 5.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, the thing of it is, with the tables already sold, and you have to cut it because of this COVID thing, you have to cut your attendance. That kind of cuts into the possibilities for people who want to bid on items.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah,
so, which is another way of saying we need your money, folks.
Very true.
And we would accept donation checks to the Veterans Assistance Commission there on North McLean Street, just catty corner from Latham Park there.
Okay.
I might mention, Joe, if it's okay to say that some of the tables have been sponsored by local people and or businesses, and they're not sold out. So there may be spaces at some of the tables if anybody wants to come.
Oh,
they
sure.
can contact us, and we can let them know who.
So let's don't take for granted that it's full.
Right.
The tables
That's
have been
correct.
paid for, but there will be places at the
There
tables.
could very well be, so please don't hesitate, don't be discouraged. There could very well be a place for you. So let us know, and we'll make arrangements to get you in contact with those sponsors to get you a space.
Thank you for reminding people.
Somebody called me the other day and says, I saw you hanging at the courthouse square. And I said, yeah, my daddy always said I'd probably be hung at the square sometime. They have those great veterans pictures around the square. And my brother and I occupy the same pole, which didn't surprise our father any. But that was a nice gesture that the Rotary Club sponsored, to have these veterans pictures
nice.
around the square. And it's kind of neat to see them.
Yeah. And if you, and just interrupt you for a second, the ones that were in the parks, in the two parks, have been moved.
From
They're now
Schaler.
down Broadway and over into tourism.
How nice.
I got a hold of Kirby Rogers and Walt Landers, the street department, and one of the things that the veterans did was we donated the funds to buy the brackets.
Oh.
And Kirby got us in touch with the company that sold the brackets. We paid for the brackets, and Mr. Landers and his crew went through and put them up and then moved those so they're more visible all the way down Broadway up to tourism now. So they're not in the parks anymore. Somebody goes there looking, they're not there, we didn't get rid of them. We put them out where it's easier to see them, and they're not hidden by the trees now. So
There again,
kudos to them.
Mayberry at work.
Yeah.
I call it small town. And I kind of use that I don't kind of use it, I do use it in an exemplary way, as opposed to making fun of Mayberry. It's small town America. And that's we kind of have the tendency to make things work here.
Yes, we do.
Which is really nice. And Marsha
you're-
Fernandes and Joe Schaler are right at the bottom of the pile of pushing and making things work. We appreciate your taking your time today, Marsha and Joe. Remind folks again that the Veterans Fundraiser will be Saturday, October the 3rd. And while the tables have been sold, that does not mean that there may not be room at tables. So make an inquiry there, and you could get in. Close Viewpoint once again with the thing it's a little thing, but it's an important thing, and that is be the reason somebody smiles every day. Thank you, Marsha and Joe.
Welcome.
Thank you.